Hi, I'm Ray, G4NSJ. A third video, yet another video about the HRO. Where will it ever end? So hopefully you've seen the first two videos. If not, don't worry too much. This has all been heavily modified, so there is a lot of work to do on it. The reason I'm doing the third video is, well, there's an important update. There's some good news in a minute, but a lot of you have emailed me. Keep me posted. I want to know how you get on. Tell me what the faults are, blah, blah, blah. So I thought I'd carry on. Right, here's the good news bit first. The oscillator is now working. In fact, if I turn that up, there we are. That's now working. Turn that off. It's a bit of a long story. Let's turn all that off. I've replaced all the, it is off, yeah, decoupling capacitors and some of the coupling capacitors. I'm only sort of half, well, I've done all the decoupling, I think, except for one or two up there. I put LT on, all the heaters lit up. I put HT on, which is B positive, as it used to call it in America, the high voltage. I put HT on, fitted a proper power lead, and half the valves didn't have HT, which is odd. The front end valves, like the the RF amps, the mixer, the oscillator, no HT. So the manual I've got isn't quite this model. Well, it is this model, but this one's been modified. Nightmare. A challenge, to say the least. Actually, it's keeping my brain going. They say as you get older, you need to keep your brain active. Well, if you want to keep your brain active, get one of these. Happy days. I discovered the HT to the front end goes to a little tag. There are two tags with wires that are cut off. Gone. What that was, they came out of the back to a transmitter, if you're going to use this in conjunction with a transmitter. And when you fire up the transmitter, the relay in there mutes this receiver. It cuts HT to the front end. Otherwise you've got howling feedback and all sorts. You don't want that. You want this disabled. You want it shut up while you're transmitting. So of course the wires had been cut and it was permanently muted. So I put a link across there, and I then thought I'll have HT everywhere. There was an HT short. So I had to trace the wiring to find where the short was. A wet patch on my shirt. I spilled egg down at breakfast time and washed it off. I shouldn't tell you that, should I? I should hide that. There we are, I'm honest. Okay, I had to trace the wiring. You know, you get an HT lead to a tag where two wires go off. Cut one of them. Have I still got a short? Yes, right, it's that wire. Connect that back. Follow where that goes off to three wires. Cut one off. No, that's right. You know what I mean? You trace it. You trace it like that. And I traced it to, where was it? This valve, I think. Yeah, to the oscillator. No, it wasn't. I don't know. I traced it. An anode feed resistor. Okay. The HT side, the resistor had been pushed against the chassis. The HT side of the resistor was touching a tag on the chassis, shorting out the HT. Took quite a while to find that, as you can imagine, because you've got to check all round and find exactly where the short is. I knew it wasn't a decoupling capacitor because I'd replaced all those. Bend the resistor up a little bit. I've got HT. Excellent. Still no oscillator. What's going on? What that was, the coil pack, I won't pull it out, the coil pack contacts, loads of them, were filthy. Cleaned all those up. Cleaned the contacts inside the radio, they're like brass fingers. Cleaned all those up. Put that back. Oscillator runs. Yes, a result at long last. I've got part of the radio working. There's some even better news coming up at the end of this video, so don't switch off before the end. Something else has happened. When I was showing you the oscillator running, what I did, that's aerial from my little communications receiver there, the low HF150. That's tuned to wherever, and that just picks up the oscillator. It's a good strong signal from the oscillator, and from one end of the band to the other it is covering all frequencies properly that it should cover. So there's a good strong signal coming from that. I put the receiver over there on 465 kilohertz, which is the IF frequency, put this near the IF valves, and I was picking up a very strong signal, a carrier. But that seems to have disappeared. It was short-lived, fleeting it was. Fleeting, it's gone. So what I've got to do now, I've got the frequency counter here. I've got nothing coming out of the mixer. I should have obviously the IF signal coming out of the mixer. So what I'm going to do next is check the two RF amplifiers are working. I've got to put a signal into the aerial socket. There are two aerial sockets, by the way, a right bodge. I don't know what someone's done here. Two Bellingsley coax sockets, which are dreadful. One's for a dipole, one's for an end-fed wire. So I've got to put a signal in there and trace it through, see what's going on. It should be going into the mixer after being amplified, then out of the mixer, 465 kcs. Oh, kilohertz, showing my age. I've repaired I took all this out, the S-meter, because the glass was pushed in. So I took all that apart, sorted that out, cleaned it all. The glass inside was filthy. That's all done. The cabinet I've started to clean. I was going to take it all to bits and spray it, but I didn't really want to do that. There's only a few rust spots here and there. So what I've done, if you get a rag, put some oil on it, 3-in-1 oil, just ordinary oil, do that all over it. It really comes up nicely. My boss told me that in the 60s, when I was in the radio and TV workshop. He caught me repairing or modifying a PCR receiver. Do you remember the PCR receivers? I was fitting a mains power supply in it. And he came in, he said, that hammer finish, or that whatever it is finish, it's, what do you call it? I can't remember what you call it. He said, get some oil on a rag and do that all over it. It took an interest. Actually, it was quite good. He was always interested in what I was doing. Mending tellies was boring. If he came in and he saw something like a 19 set on my bench or whatever, he took an interest. He did say it's supposed to be mending tellies, not, you know, your 19 set, but whatever. The volume control, I should say audio gain control to be posh, there, that one, totally seized. I don't know why the pot is totally seized. So I'm going to have to fit a new control there, get a new pot for there. There's supposed to be, these are all the acknowledgments, what's that word? Acknowledgment it is. Weird things. There's supposed to be here a 6-position switch, which is for selectivity. There's a crystal filter in there, and you can, the 6-position switch for selectivity, different bandwidths. I don't have a 6-position switch. I've got a pot, a pot, a pot, and a pot. I've got 4 pots there, so I don't know what that's all about. There's supposed to be an HT switch. When you change the coil pack, you pull this out. What you do is you cut it, that's AGC, that one. But you flick the switch, which cuts HT, okay, probably to the front end again. So you can then change your coil pack and then switch the HT back on. I don't have an HT switch. I mean, it's easy enough to fit one, yeah, but you know, where do I fit it? I put it, there's a hole there. That's meant to be the noise limiter. The pot's gone. In fact, there's not room for a, I don't know, there's not room for a pot in there. That's the headphone jack, which should be there. That's a switch. That's a pot. They're pots. I really don't know. Looking at the manual, looking at the front, it's all rather mystifying. The valves have been changed to 12.6 volt heaters. They were 6.3. Now that, I've read about the HRO, that is a fair enough modification. If you want to use this mobile out in the field, 12.6 volt heaters are ideal. Use a 12 volt supply, battery, car battery or whatever, and then get your HT from wherever. Either a vibrator pack in the old days or you know, transistorized inverter, stuff like that. So this has been changed to 12 volt heaters, which is fine. Normally, when fault finding on a superhead, you start at the loudspeaker. Right, the speaker's okay. That's if the set's dead. It's all lit up, you've got HT, everything's there, but nothing. Is the audio amp working? Yeah, that's working. Then you go back to the detector. That's working. Then the IF, stick an IF signal in there. Can you hear that? Yes, you can hear that. You work back that way, then to the mixer, oscillator, RF amp, to the aerial. That's the way you're meant to repair or find a fault on a superhead. I can't do that because this one hasn't got an audio amp. It's got a double audio triode at the end, which I don't know what, perhaps it's for headphones only, is it? I don't know. There was a little output transformer in there which I've taken out. I don't know where I put that. Probably threw the thing away. So I've had to start the other way. Start off by getting the oscillator working. Then I'm going to stick a signal in the aerial socket. Does that go through both RF amps okay? Into the mixer. I've got the oscillator going into the mixer. So I'm doing it all back to front, starting, if you like, at the front end. Then I should, as I said, have the IF signal coming out of the mixer into the first IF. Oh, that was another thing that really does, I don't know. On this circuit diagram, I'm looking at that. I know the valves are different and everything. It's all been modified. On the circuit, RF amp, first detector, then the oscillator. First detector. I think, well, what's the first detector? The second detector is the ordinary detector. You know, a couple of diodes, AGC, audio, that stuff. First detector. They mean the mixer. Is this another American term? I've never heard of it. The first detector is what we call the mixer. In the old days we called it the frequency changer. I think I prefer the word mixer, that's kind of because it mixes, doesn't it? Signal coming in, oscillator, mix it, IF out. So there we are. Any Americans listening or watching this, why do you call it a first detector? Initially I thought this was a factory modification because it all looks quite neat, but there are dry joints everywhere. I don't know what, whoever it was that had a go at this, I think they need to learn how to solder. There was a capacitor I was replacing. The old one end was through the little hole in the valve base pin, you know, and it wasn't soldered. It's just loose, hopeless. From what I've read about National HRO, they did a lot of modifications over the years, over a lot of years, and they didn't record everything. They didn't make a note. They didn't let people know what they'd done. So they take a radio like this, where the RF and IF valves had top caps for the control grids, okay? What they did, took those out, put valves in without top caps, yeah, proper valves, variable mu types and all that, and they've very neatly, where the leads went to the top caps, they've brought them down here through the chassis. There's those black ones, and they're very nicely routed to the valve bases. Now I've checked the valve type, look up the pin connections, and yes, they go to the control grid. So it's been done properly. That's why I thought it was a factory mod. It might be, but someone's perhaps since been at it and their soldering leaves a lot to be desired. There's still one or two capacitors up here to change. It certainly is a challenge, as I said, but I must admit I'm quite enjoying it. It's one thing getting a radio that did work, like the R209. It worked and developed a fault and died. So you find the fault. And while I was about it, I replaced all the old caps and stuff like that. With this one, there isn't a fault. There's like 500,000 faults, plus someone's mucked up stuff. So you're having to, and there's no circuit diagram, not to suit these valve types. Did I say I have been through some of these valves, check the data sheet, look at the pin out, stuff like that, and they are the correct valves for, they're wired up properly. Because I wondered whether someone had just stuck any old valves in it. For some reason, people do weird things for some reason or other. I don't know why. They do strange things to radios, as I've discovered over the decades. Luckily, all the tuning mechanism is all right. The 4 gangs in there, the tuning capacitor, the gearbox, and all the front mechanism, the dial, all this here, this is fine. It's lovely. This is corroded. I'm going to have to take this off. I'm not quite sure. Take this off and see what I can do about that. I've got to fit a bulb in the back of the S meter. There's a hole in the back. Do you remember the old cars? Back of the speedo, back of the fuel gauge, there was a hole. You push a bulb in there, a little holder. It's that sort of thing. There's a panel lamp there. The bulb's missing from there. Right, an update. A good update. I've fitted here the HT on-off switch down here where it should be. There was for some weird reason, there was a pot. Well, I know why actually. A pot was put above the RF gain control. Someone took out the HT switch because when you change the coil pack, you've got to turn the HT off. So I put a switch there. The reason they put a little pot above the RF gain pot, the RF gain's open circuit, the track's open at one end, it's wire wound. So they put another pot above it in parallel with it. It's just a nightmare, isn't it? So anyway, that's that done. I've what else have I done? Replaced more, this time coupling capacitors. Now, do you remember I said I've got the little aerial? I've put the radio on over there on 465 kilohertz, okay, and that's on 465. Look.
A big security presence, lots of police, there's a National Guard.
There we are.
Course all around the convention centre. They are expecting, if not tens of thousands of people on the streets today.
The oscillator's obviously running.
All those protests, all focused on the war on
down a bit. The two RF amplifiers are obviously working. The mixer's working. And the two IF stages are working. Because there it is.
Won and lost in those three marginal states where every vote counts.
There's no audio amp, as I've said earlier. There's a double triode, audio double triode, where the audio output valve should be. So I'm having to pick it up from the IF signal. But it's actually encouraging now. It's encouraging that the thing is working. I don't know whether, what I'm going to do next is take audio out of the detector, you know, before the audio triode, see what's coming out of the detector. There should be audio. So what I'll do is get an amp, I'll find an audio amp and see if there's anything coming out of there, or even out of the audio double triode. I don't know what that's for. So yeah, the RF gain, if you that's flat out, it's open circuit, so you've got to keep it on full. The S meter does work. So let's turn that off. That's the latest update. I'm very pleased with that. Before I go, has anyone got a 10k wire wound pot? It'll be linear, won't it? 10k linear wire wound pot. You can donate that if you want towards the cause, the HRO restoration project. Oh yeah, the RF gain control. The idiot that worked on this, there were two coax sockets at the back. One just had a wire on it to the RF gain control. I don't know, what's the point of that? So anyway, there's one aerial socket and a bodge there. So I don't know what had happened there. I found loads of other weird things that have been wired up all incorrectly and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, that's the progress so far. Thanks to you, Roy, for giving me the HRO receiver. Very nice of you. Roy isn't the idiot, by the way. Roy didn't do any work on it. He's not the idiot. Whoever had it before, I don't know, somewhere back down the line, he was the idiot. And hello to Brad in America. Brad and I have been emailing back and forth because he's also restoring one of these, and Brad has some spare coil packs. Was it 3 you said, Brad? So we're going to work out some postage there and see what we can do there. Before I go, if you want to say anything, ray@G4NSJ.co.uk, email me. Be great to hear from you, even if you're only going to say what a load of rubbish. Okay, that'll do. Thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed that. I shall keep you posted. Oh no, you're thinking, please don't. See you next time. Bye bye for now.